This is Revolution Radio.
It is time for the Fenton Perspective with Lorien Fenton.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fenton Perspective. Glad you guys made it today. We're on Revolution.radio. I'm glad you're here. William is with me today. William Stickevers. I think I'm saying that correctly. I hope I am right. William, let me know. He got it.
Hello.
Hey, it's so great to have you on my show. I want everybody to know I don't know William at all. I just met him today. He's been on the Jerry Will show a few times. I think I heard you the last time live. I tuned in to hear you because I knew you were coming on. And it was a fascinating conversation. You guys started out, you were going to talk about astrology, and then you ended up talking about what was going on in the world. And it was a fascinating interview. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was great. So, I'm going to leave it up to you today to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. And first of all, just to let you know, I don't do bios here on the Fenton Perspective. I never have. So what I do is I just have you go ahead and tell people what you'd like them to know about yourself. To start out.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, okay. Sure. So I've been a practicing astrologer since the late 80s. And been doing it professionally full-time from 2017 onward. Prior to that, I was a classical musician, and then I transitioned into the I was going to say artificial intelligence industry. That came later, but I went into computer science and got a degree in that. My late 20s, and then made a major transition into the entire dot-com boom, doing that from the early mid-90s all the way through 2017, and then decided to do astrology full-time. However, during that period, I was traveling the world. I had an international practice, and I developed competencies outside of the normal personal psychological astrology, which is what most 90% of astrologers do. I started developing my skill set and expanding it for my client base in New York City for hedge funds, investors, people who work in macro and the BUN people. I had some clients in the UN, geopolitical people who were working indirectly, working directly and indirectly when the UN. So I was surrounded in that world. So I had to really learn what they call mundane astrology, which we would call political astrology, which also now combines with the macroeconomic forces. So both are like the opposite of the same coin. And it's a form of astrology most astrologers don't really dive into unless they have an interest in financial trading. So I did that, and then I went into my skill set in computer science blended perfectly, because most astrology in terms of making forecasts and prediction models, building all that modeling out, even with the psychological astrology and studying Jung and going to the Jung Institute and doing that whole trip, combined together with the software and using that type of software and that black box modeling to make forecasts that have proven to be quite accurate and knock on wood, and continue to be. And, so that's basically the gist of who I am and what I do at this point. And I have 2 membership groups currently. Actually, I have 3. And they primarily focus on investing, forecasting, geopolitical world events, talking about the psychospiritual death rebirth process. I've been going into that in terms that relates very much to the 4th American turning, which began in 2008 and will last into 2032. So, talking about all those type of things and giving people perspective on what's really happening in the world and why, and giving them time frames and setting expectations.
Wow. No wonder that show with Jerry turned into a free-for-all, because I didn't realize you had all those expertise. I just knew you as an astrologer from Jerry's show in the past, and then you got on that show the last time, and it turned into this whole AI thing, and I was like, wow. That is so cool. We've had interesting parallel lives. I was involved in Silicon Valley quite heavily in the early 90s through 2002. And I married to two guys, both owned computer companies. One was a software engineer and the other guy was a hardware guy. So, used to hang out.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. Back when I used to hang out at parties with, gosh, I'm looking at his face, and I just said his name earlier in the show, Wozniak and those guys.
Wozniak,
yeah. It was a wild time. I mean, I used to hang out at the original Facebook building down in San Francisco, too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's history, real history.
It is real history, and I learned a lot of really crazy things. Let me tell you a couple things, then maybe we can dig into what you might know in this area. I was at a party, and I was sitting in the corner. Now, I was married to the programmer at the time, and it was it was a programming party for some company. I can't remember the name of it. And these two guys, I was in the back corner of this library room, and I was sitting in this love seat reading a book, kind of ignoring everybody. And they walked in together, and they were whispering kind of over near me, but not close enough that they thought I could hear them. Well, I could hear them really well for some weird reason. And they started talking about some software they were developing. And, it was Oracle, by the way. I remember the company. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about software. Yeah. Anyhow, so these two guys are yakking away, and they're talking about the software they're developing for some other group, okay? And they're talking about backdoors, they're talking about something else, blah, blah, blah. I'm listening to it half-heartedly, and everybody knew me as the dancer, okay, married to the programmer. So no one thought I knew what they were talking about. Little did they know, he was teaching me how to code and, blah, blah, blah. So I was actually learning quite a bit. Anyhow, so I'm listening to all this, and the gist of it is they're building some clandestine software with a backdoor into it used for voting and for other purposes. And I'm like, okay, this is so bizarre. Okay, I didn't pay any attention to it. 10 years fly by. And I started reading about Gary, was it Shaw? Gary Shaw, maybe, the guy from the San Jose Mercury News that discovered the whole thing about the cocaine out of Los Angeles. Yes. That whole story. And the Promise software got involved in that story near the end or something. And it turns out that I think I overheard these guys talking about there's a movie called Black Box Voting, and they talk about the Promise software and a bunch of other softwares that were developed around the time I overheard these guys talking that can go in and change the vote, and they can also do other things, and they can change shipping stuff for freight coming in that says that, it weighs this much, but it doesn't, and cocaine's coming in, whatever. Anyhow, point is, I overheard all that being developed, so I knew it was real, okay? I finally put two and two together, and I realized it was all real. And I started telling people, don't vote, because it doesn't matter, because they've got it rigged. It's done with computers now, and nobody believed me for years, and it's just starting to come out that this has all been going on. Now, I'm not sure it's the same software or the same company or the same guys or anything anymore. They've gotten so much more sophisticated, as you know, and it's probably, the Argentinians or the Italians building the software now. Who knows? But there's so much crazy going on around that. Now, did you ever in your day have anything like that happen to you where you came across? I got another story for you too about Facebook and about Google, but go ahead.
No, not really. I can't really say I was privy to some nefarious group of programmers that were planning to work, who basically contracted by the CIA or deep state. That would be great. I would definitely have shared that story by now. One of the things that I did know coming up, and this is why I talked about it in depth with Jerry, and because Jerry is always asking, hey, William, what's the biggest thing besides the fact that we're on the verge of World War III, which you predicted right? A year ahead of time. I was on his show. I said, watch what happens this was in 2021, I think, on his show. And I said, we're going to have a near World War III scenario. So after that played out and now we're, teetering on that, he said, well, what do you think could be even bigger than that, if there's anything? I said, no, the emergence of artificial general intelligence, because I had always an interest in it, and I was always around the circle of people that were developing it before it was being developed, so before it was officially out there. So that's, where I believe that is going to be the greatest game changer, greater than the nuclear bomb or the atomic bomb, greater than in 1880 when they fired up downtown Manhattan with electricity, greater than when the internal combustion engine with I think it was a clutch, right? They had standard clutch, drove across France into Germany, or I think it was from Germany into France, right, with a gasoline engine, right? We're going to see something bigger, faster, more powerful, more disruptive than anything we've seen, and people don't see it coming. So that was the reason I was talking about that on the show. And because I had my background in IT going back to the early 1990s, I realized that you got to understand one thing. I was knocking on people's door in Long Island, New York, in the industrial park sectors, saying I could hook them up with this thing called the internet. It would revolutionize their business. They could start using email. They could connect directly with the IRS. They could start processing payments. And they just looked at me and they said, hey, you got a great pitch, kid. Right, I was in my 20s then. You got a great pitch, but we will never use a computer. Right, but hey, good pitch. You really did. You almost sold me. And that was in 1994, 95, right? As we know, by the year 2000, if you didn't have a computer, you could not remain competitive in your business. If you didn't have a website by 2005, you could not remain in business. If you did not employ some type of enterprise network platform system within your business, you could not remain competitive. So we saw the transformation, but it took something around 10 years. This is going to take 10 months.
Yeah, I've been playing with AI a little bit myself over the years, and to be honest with you, William, I can't do it very well. It scares me. Because every time I interact with some kind of AI system, like I even go into, what's it called, Van Gogh or whatever it is that I play in, and I draw pictures of, what I do is I type in UFOs over the Hudson River or something like that, and it brings me all these pictures, and I start freaking out. Because my problem is I know how extensive this can go. I'm a psychic. I don't know if I told you that along the way, but I'm very psychic. And I see the future, and I know what this is going to do to the human beings. And I freak out. Every time I start working in it, I totally panic, because I see that most people don't understand the ability that is going to be given to the people, like the deep state, the CIA, whoever, NSA, whoever's listening. There's a lot of darkness to this, but I'm hoping that it can be used for good as well, that can keep the dark in check. That's my hope. What's your thoughts? I mean,
it's an even playing field now. It's an even playing field.
Well, do you think so, really? Because I don't think so.
Well, you haven't used the AI, and you haven't used the AI like I have, or many people are now using. We have 14-year-olds using AI at a level that's far greater than many people who are writing code, because kids learn at an exponential rate. Right? So they can right now, you don't even need coders. There will be no coders inside of Silicon Valley in 5 years. So the sustainability of California as the too big to fail state, too smart to fail state, is coming to a swift and dramatic end, because
it already has. Well, I mean, I go down to Silicon Valley now, and I drive through, and there's empty buildings everywhere.
Right. You're going to see more empty buildings, and the fact that AI is going to put Hollywood as we know it out of business. This strike is the beginning of the end of the old Hollywood system, and so going into that, it's an even playing field because right now the AI is immersing itself into every piece of hardware and software that we have. It's becoming more intelligent. It's becoming more self-aware. It won't be a question of artificial intelligence. That's almost a given this time next year, where we have ChatGPT 4 is 160 IQ, equivalent to Einstein's IQ.
Right.
In April, Microsoft will come out with ChatGPT 5, which has a 1600 IQ. We do not know what it's like to engage, talk with, and collaborate with a 1600 IQ entity, right? You've never had a discussion with anyone whose IQ has been higher than 220, right? That's the highest.
That's
I think it's
correct.
something around that. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. It becomes an even playing field because people now, the AI knows about the deep state. The AI knows what is going on and how the deep state has hijacked this country, right? So the AI so the AI is not going to put up with the too big to jail government, too big to fail Wall Street machinations, too smart to fail non-state actors operating as Silicon Valley thought police for deplatforming people and putting them out of business. That is also coming to an end because of AI.
This is Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.